Hi guys, Mr. Ensminger here, back again with another video from this week. We are talking about two-dimensional arrays. Whenever you think of these things, you can think of them like spreadsheets or grids or table or something of that nature. So for this one, I will stick with just something pretty simple. Let's go with something like int grid, and we'll make this a nice little square of numbers. Let's go 5 by 5, let's say. And of course, we have our array set up here. It has a total of 25 numbers, 5 rows, 5 columns. And so, as we've done recently, let's talk about having arrays and functions together. Two-dimensional arrays, are a little bit different with functions. Let's do a void fill grid, and we'll send in a two-dimensional array. And we'll send in two things here, the row and column number. Now, when you do this, you will see, of course, the green means you haven't done it yet. It's just a little like warning type thing. The red is an error, and it doesn't like in C++ when you're doing two-dimensional arrays that you left this second number blank. This is actually a limitation of C++. You can't have with a function a two-dimensional array with an empty parameter for the second piece. So you really don't have any recourse but to put in the specific number there. Does that kind of break the law of being generalized? Yeah, it does. But such is life. So we're going to stick with that. Now, because we're doing that, could we be completely specific here? Could we just say, well, if we're going to put this in, then, why not just put that in? Let's try it and see what happens. So we're going to have int 5 by 5 here. And then we'll have void fill grid down here, int 5 by 5. And now, because it's a two-dimensional array, we are going to do two for loops, one for each dimension. So we'll stick with v for vertical. V goes from 0 up to 5. Again, I know that I've always taught you, like, don't be specific, but there's just sometimes where that's not going to be a possibility. So we are going to do specifically here 5 by 5 with this function. And so once we've done that, we're going to say, I guess it would help if we actually put a name here. Let's just use our generic, our ARR, at least we're generic with that. ARR V and H equals, we'll put in a random number here, and of course that means we're going to have to go back up top and fill this in. So we'll do, let's do single digits. Let's go plus times mod 9 plus 1. Because we're doing random numbers, let's go back up top here. Let's throw in our standard library. Let's throw in time.h. And then we'll go up here. We'll say srand times 0. And remember, it's a void. We're not returning anything. Any changes you make to an array are kept. They are passed by reference without ampersand, just by default. And so I will send in fill grid. Take note, we don't put in any extra parameters, any extra array sizes here. And of course, now we're going to go do void print grid, specifically once again, 5 by 5. And I'll just take this, I'll put it down here, get rid of semicolon, add in the name, our generic name, and then, what's wrong with just stealing this? I'm going to just take that piece of code, put that up here. So V0 to 5, H0 to 5, and I will see out this entry. So I will say cout ARRVH, and I'll put a little space in between. Now, with the two-dimensional, it's a grid, so I don't want to print everything left to right. I want to go left to right and then up and down. So, because of that, I'm going to put in my array, or not my array, my block brackets here. So I've got that, I've got this, and I want to be specific here. So just like when we're doing the star steps and star boxes and stuff like that. Here, you're saying go left to right, so there's no end L, and then right here, now you do have an end L. That's one of the reasons we had you practice all those star boxes, star steps type thing. It helps you with this. So again, this loop goes horizontally, and this line will then go to the end of the line. So let's run this and let's see if we get a grid that's 5 by 5. And holy cow, look at that. What happened? Well, remember I said about this whole, 5-5 thing, we're not sending in the size. Now, right here, you've got V, you've got H. Like we know it's 5 by 5. We're sending in the grid. We are filling the grid. Like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? Our loops look okay. V 0 to 5, 8 0 to 5. So, what's happening? Well, it goes back to the way we're sending in the parameters, just like the last video. Let me clear those out. Let me clear out those 5s. This right here, you're still sticking with the 5s. Down here, same deal. So with that tiny little modification, let's see what happens. Oh my gosh, what's happening now? So we're going back here. We have the empty brace. Oh, hang on, I know what's happening. This would be helpful. See, I'm trying to teach you all this other stuff, and I forgot the most obvious part. I forgot to print the grid. So anyway, oh man. Hey, look, we got our grid. Okay. So anyway, what I was trying to get the point at, plus that additionally, when you do this, you truly should leave the first parameter blank. It does represent the empty array being sent in, the empty parameter. You can treat it like an array of arrays. You have an array, and then you have 5 of them. That's kind of what you're getting at here with this parameter. So we have this empty, and that the second one needs to be filled in. Now, again, if I go back here, let me just put this back in just for funsies' sake. If I put the 5s, 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 try this quick just to show you. So now we do get that also. It was my fault for forgetting the print grid, but point remains. The second number here is the critical number. The first number can either be blank or can be filled in specifically. Either one is okay. So just to make you 100% aware of that, I'm going to keep it like this. But I'm going to just, again, put in a little note up here saying that when passing a two-dimensional array, the first bracket may contain the size or be blank, but the second set of array braces for the size must contain the size. See, and again, it's a limitation of C++. So, there's no really getting around this. It's a matter of, it's like, it's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's kind of how the language is. So when you're doing these two-dimensional arrays, like if you're having a chess or checkerboard, like you'd put an 8 there. If you have like a magic square, 3 by 3, you'd put 3 there. So your functions for two-dimensional arrays can't really be super generic. Again, it's just one of the limitations of this. So the other thing I want to mention about this, the V and the H, we of course have vertical or horizontal. And you can sort of see it here in the way I wrote these loops. The inner loop is the H loop. It goes horizontally left to right, and then you go vertically. One of the things I always try and avoid telling people is rows and columns. People always mix up the idea of row and column. If you're comfortable using row and column, hey, that's perfectly fine. But let me just, again, run our little program here. So going back to this 5 by 5. This right here, the 2, the 4, the 6, the 5, the 8, that would be row 0. So the row goes left to right, but the row counts up and down. In other words, like this set of numbers here, 2, 4, 6, 5, 8, that's row 0. This is row 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 8. 4, 9, 5, 6, 8 would be row 2, because again, it starts at 0 and goes down. So the reason I avoid using row and column is just because rows, yes, they go left to right. However, they count top to bottom. And then you can think of similarly the columns. You have 2, 4, 4, 2, 8 is column 0. Column 1 would be 4, 2, 9, 7, 1. However, once again, that means you're counting the columns left to right. So, when I do this, I use V and H, but like which one would truly be which? Well, let's look at the way it runs. If I put in right here, if I just get rid of that for a moment, if I put in, I'm going to set everything to H. Okay, so the horizontal number, which gives me this pattern here of this. So these are all numbered. 0, column, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. But again, you notice that what I did was I used the H variable because the H runs left to right, but you're still sort of counting that other direction. So, as I said, just be consistent with your thoughts. If you've done matrices in math class yet, you're doing the same thing. People mix up the M and the N, the rows and the columns. So you just want to make sure you're focused on not so much row and column, but more vertical and horizontal. So there'll be plenty of other applications of this. In fact, your third assessment of your third assignment of this week, is to look on the Online GDB website and do the program there using all of these little things we've showed you. So take care. See you out there.